Welcome back to the podcast, Freelance friends. Today, I want to dig into one of the trickiest parts of freelancing, at least for me. How to say no to a client without damaging the relationship. I know it sounds so simple on paper. Just say no, right? But in my opinion, it's not that easy. When you've worked hard to build a reputation, as I have, and when you have an agency or a client that's been good to you for a consistent amount of time, saying no can feel risky. You don't want to come across as ungrateful or difficult, but at the same time, I and you can't just say yes to every opportunity that lands in our inbox, especially when it doesn't make financial or logical sense. So let me give you a very recent real world scenario that happened to me. I've worked with an agency for a while. They're not my biggest client, but they've been a major client. I have worked with them consistently. They've treated me well, and I really appreciate the steady flow of work that they've sent my way over many years now. Well, a couple of weeks ago, they reached out about a one-day training gig related to a Microsoft application that I have taught several times before. The application and the topic of the training are definitely in my wheelhouse. So it wouldn't have been something that required a ton of prep. Of course, every training class requires prep, but I didn't feel like this one would be an extra amount of prep. I knew that I could easily do the training, and the application was one that I overall enjoy teaching. So at first I thought, great, this could be a good fit. But then I learned that the rate for this gig was lower than I normally charge. Additionally, the gig required me to be on site for the training, which is fine. I do both virtual and on-site trainings. But I've got to admit that many of the organizations that I'm currently working with prefer virtual trainings because they have employees in various locations. With that said, when I do conduct in-person trainings, I really do enjoy doing them and like to make sure that I have some on my schedule here and there. But in this case, my travel and prep time would mean that this training would take more time than a virtual training that I could potentially schedule with one of my other existing clients. That means that this potential gig would likely end up to be an even lower hourly rate than I was quoted when I factor in that extra time. And I'm fortunate. Right now, I'm in a position where I have plenty of work with other clients. It's not always like that, but sometimes it's feast or famine. And luckily, I'm in a time where I do have plenty of work. Now, admittedly, some of this work is at a slightly lower rate than my usual, but it's being done from home. So when I compare the two, the at-home work just makes more sense right now because the hourly rate does end up being more when you factor in the prep time and the travel time. Plus, conducting virtual trainings that I am very comfortable with and do consistently means fewer logistics, less disruption, and honestly, just a better return on my time overall. But I found myself at a crossroads. Do I say yes to this opportunity just to maintain goodwill with this agency? Or do I turn it down, knowing that financially and practically, it just isn't worth it for me right now? I feel like this is where many freelancers like me get stuck. We start worrying. If I say no, will they stop sending me work? Will they think that I'm being greedy? Are they thinking that I'm charging too high of a rate? Am I shooting myself in the foot? But here's the thing that I realized based on my experience and some time in reflection on this situation. Saying yes to everything is actually worse in the long run. It sets an expectation that you're always available, you're always going to be flexible, and you're always willing to accept less than what you're worth if they say, well, this gig only pays X amount per hour. Are you okay with that? But once that precedent is set, it's really hard to change that behavior. Something that I really wish that I'd learned earlier in my freelancing journey, and to be honest, earlier in life in general, is the importance of boundaries. It's taken me a while to realize just how critical boundaries are, and honestly, even longer to regularly put them into practice. At first, I thought saying yes was the safest option. Yes meant I was easy to work with, I was reliable, I was available when they needed someone. So, in that regard, did yes mean that they'd keep calling me back? It was working. As I mentioned, this client has given me consistent work over several years. But over time, I've started to notice the cost of all of those yeses. I was working harder, earning less at some points, and sometimes even resenting the opportunity that I had accepted because of those reasons. So eventually it hit me. Boundaries aren't a luxury. They're a necessity for the success of your business and frankly, your own sanity. In my opinion, when you accept less than you're worth or make yourself constantly available, you're not just telling your client that you'll settle for less. You're also telling the universe that you don't deserve more. And I know that may sound a little out there, but I've seen it play out over and over again. It almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. In that, if you've set the precedent that you'll always take the lower rate, that's the type of work that you'll keep getting offered. In this case, of course, the agency wants to make more of a profit on this gig if they can. So if I'm always taking the lower rate, why would they ever offer me a higher rate? But when you set clear boundaries and hold yourself to reasonably high standards, I'm not saying to ask for the sun, moon, and stars, but setting a reasonably high standard. Why can't that also become self-fulfilling? I think that it does become self-fulfilling in the way that you can start attracting better opportunities and you even earn more respect because You know your value and you've set those reasonable boundaries so that in the long run, your business grows stronger because of it. And don't get me wrong, boundaries aren't about being difficult. That is not the intention here at all. They're about showing your clients and yourself and the universe that you know your value. And that clarity benefits everyone involved. So you're probably wondering, how do you actually say no without burning that bridge? Well, I believe that the key is to combine three things: appreciation, authentic appreciation, honesty, and an open door. So, in a situation like this, I find that a generative AI tool such as ChatGPT can give you great advice. So I typed my situation in and I asked ChatGPT for 2 variations of responses that I could give. I will show what ChatGPT generated here. I think that they gave me pretty good responses. As you can see, the first example was a polite decline. It said, "Thank you so much for thinking of me for this opportunity. I really enjoy working with your team and appreciate the projects you send my way. Unfortunately, I won't be able to take this particular training at the rate offered, as it would mean stepping away from other client commitments. I'd love to stay on your radar for future opportunities that are a better fit, and I truly value our ongoing partnership." So notice what was happening in that one. It shows gratitude. It shows that you're clear about why you're passing on this opportunity, and you're also leaving the door wide open for future work. As I mentioned, I liked this option. I feel like ChatGPT did a good job, but honestly, it didn't sound like me. That isn't the way that I would word things. It's not that it was poorly worded. It's just, that's not the way that I would word things. And if you've watched my Let's Talk Tech videos where I talk about AI, because I predominantly am doing a lot of AI training these days, one of the most important things about using AI in your freelance work, in my opinion, is that you get it to sound like you. Okay, moving on to the next example. This one is more of a gentle counter. And ChatGPT recommended saying, "Thank you for reaching out. I always appreciate the work I get through your agency. For on-site training engagements like this one, my standard rate is," insert your rate, "since they require additional prep and travel time. I completely understand if that's outside of the budget for this particular session, but please do keep me in mind for future opportunities. I really value working with you and look forward to continuing our collaboration." So this version does 2 things. It politely declines the current rate and communicates your standard rate. That means that if the agency can't meet your rate at this time, they may adjust it in the future or contact you according to gigs that have your going rate. And again, you're framing all of this around appreciation and ongoing partnership. Now, both of these examples were good, but the second one didn't really sound exactly like me either. And it's very important for me that my voice shines through in all of my interactions with my clients. But in this case, ChatGPT did give me a good launching pad to create my own version. For me, I decided to adapt mostly the second option that we just went over and wrote to the agency saying that for on-site training gigs like this one, I do require a higher rate since they require additional prep and travel time. I completely understand if that's out of the budget for this particular session, but please do keep me in mind for future opportunities. I really love working with the name of their organization. I sent it with the hopes that it had the appropriate tone and messaging. Of course, I did have some worries, but I knew that I was being authentic to my boundaries, and I knew that that was important. But again, honestly, there's the emotional side of this. When you say no, it can feel scary because freelancers often operate from a place of scarcity. We don't have that security of a full-time job, so we're worried about having consistent work coming in that's going to pay the bills. So part of you might be thinking, well, what if this is the last gig they ever send me? But honestly, that's really the case. In this case, I talked to the person who manages several of the gigs and assigns different freelancers to them for this agency, and she was fine. And I were talking about another potential project that was coming down the road. I'm sure that she experiences this sort of thing all the time. And I have to believe that I've proven my reliability, my skill set, and my professionalism over the course of time there. So in my opinion, my polite no is not going to erase all of that. And of course, it's going to be the same for you. I firmly believe that you can earn respect by doing this because they know that you know what you're worth, and you probably have the experience behind you if you are requesting a higher rate. I think it shows that you run your business thoughtfully and you're not afraid to have professional boundaries. So the big takeaway is this. Saying no doesn't mean closing the door. When it's done the right way, it actually strengthens your relationships. It positions you as a professional, not just a paid set of hands for hire. And most importantly, it ensures that you're spending your time on the work that truly makes sense for you, whether it be financially, logistically, strategically, or some combination of all of those. Protecting your self-worth isn't selfish. It's really smart business. And in my experience, the more consistent you are with your boundaries, the better clients and opportunities you attract. All right, that's it for today's episode. I'd be curious to know if you've ever had to turn down a client opportunity and how you handled it. Did it go smoothly? Did it feel awkward? Did you regret it? Or did it actually help you long term? Did you work with that client or agency again? Share your stories and let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you found value from this, please like and subscribe. And finally, protecting your worth is part of protecting your business. Until next time, take care.